And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another VFL Vantage. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Victorian Football League gets to stand up. We get to talk the lovely game that is VFL and VFLW, and joining my great co-host, hoping and crossing our fingers, no internet issues like we've always been baned every time that we talk. That is Mr. Brendan Jaunty Rhodes. Brendan, great to see you again, sir.
Welcome back to Melbourne with the internet issues, Donny. How are you over there in America? I'm sure a fair bit warmer than we are here.
Just the tiniest bit. We had a nice little heat indice issues this weekend, but I stayed cool, enjoyed the footy, both in the AFL and all of the state leagues. So I have been doing as best I possibly can. The one thing about the heat is it drives me inside. I guess I get to watch a little bit of footy in the process. So always some strange perks sometimes that comes through it. So
Always a bonus for that. And, I think we're sitting up to about our fourth week of Australian cold. Certainly not American cold, but Australian cold.
yeah, well, you are going into nice winter period, and it's not too bad. So let's hop right into it, sir. Since the last time that we have talked, we have had three rounds in the women's, rounds 7 through 9, and the men's have had four rounds, rounds 10 through 13. To really quickly jump back in the time machine of the brain, sir. Thoughts on the games that we have had? Because looking at it, there's been some entertaining football in both competitions.
Well, it might have been cold in the weather, but it's certainly been hot in the footy. That is for sure. There's been some amazing upsets. There's been some droughts break in the women's competition. We've seen we've seen moving day for a couple of teams, and a couple of other teams that have fallen off the radar simply because they didn't have a radar and kept kicking points. So yeah, it's very very hard to pick a winner across both competitions.
Definitely, for sure. So let's jump right into. We'll jump into the weeds a little bit. We will jump on to the women's side first, and then jump over to the men's. So we will jump back to round 7, as we see the Box Hill Hawks continue a strong season with a win by 17 over Essendon, 42-25. Carlton getting a win in the bottom of the table clash, 56-16 over the KC Demons. Collingwood with another impressive win, beating the Sandy Zebras 61-8. Darabin, kind of my somewhat team a little bit when it comes to the VFLW, get a win over the Cats 46-21. The Seagulls and the Western Bulldogs play in an absolute defensive fest. I will talk about this one later at a 13-6, a 7-point win by the Gulls. And North Melbourne Werribee knock off Port Melbourne 42-15. And we'll go to the lowest scoring game only because we have one of the callers of that particular game there. And I'll ask you this, sir. Was it good defense, bad offense, or just really good football that just could not be decided on the scoreboard?
Really good defense. Put it that way. It was unbelievable stuff. Scoreless at quarter time. The Western Bulldogs, Williamstown got a behind in the second quarter from a 50-metre penalty given away by the Western Bulldogs' #1 draft pick of a year or so ago in Christy Lee Weston Turner.
Mhm.
And then at the 19-minute mark of the third quarter, so 1 minute before three-quarter time, the score was still 1-0.
Mhm.
And we thought we were watching a soccer game.
It was the flattest
Uh,
score worm I've ever seen.
Unbelievable stuff. The Western Bulldogs won a free kick in the goal square, kicked a goal right on three-quarter time, led 6-1. And, well, we thought they haven't scored for three quarters, but now they're the favourites to win. But unfortunately for them and fortunately for Williamstown, the Seagulls were able to answer. They kicked two goals in the last quarter. And, yeah, 2-1-13 to one straight six. It's certainly the lowest scoring game that I have ever called, but it wasn't as bad a game as you would suggest. As I said, the
Mhm.
half-back lines were absolutely dominant. Laura Blue and Shani Whiting for Williamstown at half-back. They were the best players on the ground. The Bulldogs had a couple of stars, Tamsin Crook. Certainly never let anything get past her as well. And yeah, just a great contest between two premiership contenders with the Seagulls getting out there on top.
Yeah, definitely for sure. I remember sitting down, I looked at the scoreboard and I'm like, Wow, that's some good defensive football. So, and I was listening to it a little bit just during the last couple of days, and was like, Brendan got to call that game, so it'd be fascinating. So that's why I wanted to ask to see what you thought of that particular game of footy. Let's jump to round 8 of the women's, where we see a cracking game as Port Melbourne put a little bit of a scare, but the Bulldogs get to pull out the win, 33-23. The KC Demons fall to the Williamstown Seagulls by 17, 40-23. Collingwood edge out the Essendon Bombers by 8, 47-39. The Box Hill Hawks knock off the Falcons 43-11. North Melbourne Werribee put a whooping on the Cats by 88, 110-22. And the Sandringham Zebras bounce back, knocking off the Carlton Blues 43-15. I got to go to a Collingwood Essendon, an 8 point thriller between these two, and Collingwood looking absolutely sensational.
Along with North Melbourne, Werribee, Collingwood are definitely the form team of the competition. Box Hill going very well, sitting up there near the top of the ladder as well. But the
Mhm.
Magpies flying at the moment, sitting on I think, a 5-match winning streak. And this was a really impressive performance by them. Amelia Peck stepping up and kicking 5 goals, which was straight off the top of my head, I believe, a Collingwood record. And they kicked 4 goals to nothing in the first quarter, and just controlled it from the rest of the way. 39-8, so 31 points up at halftime. Essendon fought back hard in the second half, but it was always going to be a bridge too far for them to get back into this contest. And yeah, Collingwood certainly one of the teams to watch, and they've now put their eggs in the Amelia Peck basket, interestingly enough, by dropping their previous leading goal kicker, Chloe Hunt, the following week after this. So if they can get both of those two girls back in the team and in form at the same time, then they are a genuine chance to go all the way and knock off North Melbourne Werribee again, as they did back in round 6.
Definitely. Still several weeks to go. We'll get through round 9, and still 5 rounds left after we're done with the rounds that have gone through. So still some good machinations to come through. But man, has it been fun to watch some of these clubs here in the women's competition. We will jump to round 9, the last games that have played since the last time that we talked, as the Williamstown Seagulls get a win over Essendon 27-11, a 16-point win. Collingwood sensational form continues with a 27-point win, 53-26 over Port Melbourne. A little bit of a shocker as the KC Demons play to within 2 goals of the Box Hill Hawks, but still fall short, 48-36. North Melbourne Werribee get the win over Darebin 54-14. The Sandy Zebras with a little bit of a shocker, knocking off the Western Bulldogs 42-13. And the Geelong Cats get off the schneid, get the win over Carlton 56-14. But really quickly, I want to discuss it. I mean, it had to have been a little bit of a shocker. KC Demons plays to within 2 goals. A team with no wins this season plays to within 2 goals of the Box Hill Hawks, a team that was in the conversation for the flag this year.
All about selection, Donny. The Demons brought in 9 AFLW players for this game, so
That would
actually
be why.
started favourites. They actually started favourites. So it is an amazing effort by the Box Hill Hawks to actually win that game of football, despite half the Casey team being AFLW. And the Demons led right up till 3-quarter time. They were a goal up at 3-quarter time, but they just couldn't stop the Hawks in the last quarter. I didn't get to see the match, so I'm assuming they might have taken some of those AFLW girls off in the last term, and the Hawks kicked 4-1 at the end to claim that a very important victory on what could have been a real banana peel for them. Casey now with 11 losses in a row, dating back to late last season. But yeah, that it shows quickly right there the differences between, I suppose, between where the AFLW is at and the VFLW is at the moment. The VFLW is improving and improving fast, but when they decide to give the AFLW girls a run, it certainly makes a difference. And they
Definitely.
led
Yeah.
by 2 goals a minute before 3-quarter time, Casey, and yeah, conceded 5 of the last 6 to go down to a very good team in a round that's got storylines absolutely everywhere. This round 9 competition. I could tell you something about every single game if we had the time to go through them.
I wish we could, but we still have 4 rounds in the men's and some burning questions to go through. Again, we've got plenty
The
of
one
time.
before
We've
you do though,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
the one
Sure,
before you do, I do have to do one. I do have
sure,
to do one, and that
please.
is the Cats. You said the Cats got off the schneid. Is that that's an American term that I
I've
haven't
I've
heard
heard that
before?
before. It's getting a win, yeah, off the Schneider, getting off the zero there. So
Yeah. Well, the zero dated back to round 6 last year. That was a 16 match losing streak they broke, Geelong. So congratulations to the Cats, and yeah, it just capped off what was a horrible weekend at all levels for the Carlton Footy Club.
Unfortunately, we won't go to that. I already have my AFL show coming out here a little bit later for during this recording time. It's coming out a little bit later, and I know that was a huge discussion, especially amongst some. I tried not to cover it because I know so many of the footy shows decided that was the biggest thing to talk about was a Carlton Footy Club falling short to a North Melbourne team that I came this close to tipping. I'm not even going to lie on that one. So, all right, let's jump to the men's side of the competition. We will jump back 4 weeks to round 10. This is the last round that we had not discussed since the last time that we've had a chat here. So we'll jump to it. The Brisbane Lions get an impressive win over the Essendon Bombers, 119-99. Coburg with a smashing of the Gold Coast Suns, 135-47. Attigo Lions, that's awesome. Southport Sharks get a win over the Northern Bullets, 176-67. The Richmond Tigers edge out the GWS Giants by 2 goals, 92-80. The KC Demons smash the Sydney Swans, 155-61. Collingwood edge out with a 17-point win over the Box Hill Hawks, 78-61. The Frankston Dolphins get an impressive 6-goal win over the Sandy Zebras. Werribee survive a scare from Port Melbourne and get an 8-point win, 49-41. And the Williamstown Seagulls edge out the Cats by 26, 74-48. I mean, game of the round has to be this matchup between Werribee and Port Melbourne, because if it weren't for some Dom Brew magic, Port Melbourne would have pulled the proverbial Stephen Bradbury.
Well, very much so. Neither team kicked a goal in the first quarter. Port Melbourne were goalless at half time, interestingly enough. And I think that's the first time that has happened in a game since Werribee was goalless against Port Melbourne about 3 or 4 years ago at the same venue. Uh, but unfortunately, Port Melbourne's biggest issue for the entire year, and we can talk about it a little bit later on, has been the fact that they don't know where the centre opening is. They just cannot kick straight. They came back from that goalless first half. They hit the lead at about the 20-minute mark of the last quarter. In fact, it might have even been a little bit later. And but there, Dom Brew came up with the answers with 2 late goals at the 28 and 31-minute marks of the final term. Rescued the day for Werribee, got them the points, and kept them in the finals race, and left Port still continuing to have to fight for their life in this competition.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Again, it's baffling to me. Even the callers on that call were like, how did Don Brew not get picked up in the midseason draft? So again, but the one thing is
Darn found
the VFL gets to have the luxury of still having an absolute superstar still in the competition. Again, congratulations to Dom. That was an incredible fourth quarter, have to say for sure. So we'll jump on to round 11, starting off with the GWS Giants with an impressive 103-point win over the Northern Bullets, 150-47. The Richmond Tigers survive a scare from the Swans by 5, 64-59. The Williamstown Seagulls with an impressive win over the Brisbane Lions, 136-80. North Melbourne continue to win as they knock off Werribee 85-44. The Footscray Bulldogs knock off the Lions by 44, 111-67. The Mox Hill Hawks with another impressive victory over the Frankston Dolphins, 135-72. The KC Demons just edge out by 9 points over the Collingwood Magpies, 57-48. A thriller at GMHBA as the Cats survive a scare from the Suns by 3, 72-69. And the Carlton Blues get at least a little bit of some kind of wins as they get an 18-point win over the Bombers, 72-54. I mean, a nice round of footy, 3 games under 2 goals.
Yeah, and we're pretty much right in the depths of winter with all three of them. The
Hmm.
Saturday night game between Casey and Collingwood was a really dour affair. The Demons probably should have won and won a lot easier than they did against a Collingwood team that has been in really strong form before that and in really strong form since that. 7 goals, 15 Casey kicked, but they led the contest all the way. They were comfortably up at 3-quarter time, and then they kicked, I think, 2-4 to 4 goals, one in the last quarter. Collingwood got close, but couldn't quite get over the line. They've got a pretty strong team in at the moment at VFL level, so that was a really good performance from the Casey Demons. Even though they couldn't kick straight, they're proving that they are up for the fight to potentially make this top 10 where they are positioned at the moment. So certainly one that has surprised me throughout the course of this year so far. Can they keep it going? I think they probably can, but they're one of the spots. Both of those teams, in fact, are probably the spots that the teams outside the top 10 are looking at.
Definitely, for sure. So we'll jump over to round 12, where we see the Footscray Bulldogs get an impressive 17-point win over the Frankston Dolphins, 102-85. The Cats edge out the Bees by 2, 81-79. Southport with a nice win over the Sandy Zebras, 110-45. Port Melbourne get a win, surprising considering their kicking issues, with a 23-point win, 96-73. Box Hill with another win over the Coburg Lions, 88-50. Casey Demons get the win over Essendon, 112-83. The Brisbane Lions with a smashing over the GWS Giants, 159-74. And the Carlton Blues with an impressive 86-point win over the Northern Bull Ants, 122-36. And unfortunately, this round, not a lot of close ones except for a thriller between the Bees and the Cats.
Yeah, that was a ripping contest, but I think Werribee, unfortunately, they might be towards their tipping point now. All the players that they lost after their grand final in 2023, they were able to they had the next wave coming through that was able to lift them to the premiership last year, and now that wave has either moved on or been picked off. They've had 7 players drafted
Yeah.
in the past 2 years, and Don Brew's not one of them, which is absolutely mind-boggling for me and
Mhm.
for most people who follow the VFL competition. But they found this tough against a Geelong team that had lost 6 games in a row, pretty much from the outset. Hudson Garoni kicked 5, but having lost those 2 small forwards in the mid-season draft in Zach Bench and Flynn Young, tipping point, I think, is there, and they're going to probably find it tough to get back in the finals race from here on. I don't think Geelong's going to be making the finals either, but this was a great result from them, 26 scores to 19. They controlled the match the whole way. Werribee hit the lead in the last quarter, but a late goal from Jamison Ballantyne managed to seal the deal and ensure that Geelong got a very important win that is crippling for the Tigers.
Definitely, for sure. Let's move to the last round went through, and the exact opposite this round happened from the others because last round we had one game under 3 goals. Holy crap, there's 5 just in this round alone. We will start off the bookends, not so entertaining, but everything in between, man, we're gonna have so many to talk about. We'll start off Brisbane Lions get a 32-point win over the Geelong Cats, 117-85. Here's where the shockers start. The Sydney Swans, bottom 3 in the ladder at the time, knock off second place Southport at Queensland 92-86. Collingwood survive a scare from the Sandy Zebras by 3, 93-90. Coburg get an impressive 10-point win over Port Melbourne 77-67. Apologies. Williamstown get a 21-point win over Werribee 93-72. North and Carlton play to another cracker as the North Melbourne Kangaroos get a 1-point win over the Blues 74-73. Frankston edge out the Dolphins by a single goal, 6 66-60. The Giants edge out the Suns by 13, 93-80. And the Footscray Bulldogs go, screw this close crap. We're going to beat the heck out of Richmond, get them by 45, 90-45. 13-6, 1, 10-3-6. Holy crap, VFL. Thank you for some entertaining football.
And it was the round of the comeback. Absolutely remarkable stuff. And even one of those that had a big result was a comeback,
Mm-hmm.
because Geelong actually led Brisbane Lions by 7 points at halftime and looked like they might have been able to pinch another amazing result, only for the Lions to flex their muscles down at the Cattery in the second half and kick 10 goals to 5 to be able to get themselves over the line in that one, with young Ty Gallop, who is a first-year player, kicking 4 goals. He's one to watch. Fergus McFadgen, 3 goals there. He's a name that I just want to throw up as a possibility for the Fothergill Round Mitchell Medal for the most talented young player in the competition. He's now kicked 22 goals in 11 games in his debut season. So I'll just throw that one up there. Sydney, we'll work down the list. Sydney and Southport, second versus
Let's go
20th.
full on Homer on this one. Nobody saw this one coming the way the Swans
No
have been
way, no.
playing. Nobody saw this one coming. And the fact that they do it in comeback fashion in Queensland, this was impressive, and I know the entire club was crazy. I know that I don't know if you saw the vision of
I
the,
saw
the
it.
first teamers watching the end of the reserves getting the win over Southport. It was fantastic to see. Jesse DeToli, I know so many people have been blowing up my timeline with how good this youngster is. And I'm fascinated to see, will he make his AFL debut very, very soon, because he is absolutely lighting it up now that he is healthy.
Yeah, it took him a while to get healthy with a stress fracture in his back, which you've got to be very, very careful about. Kicked a remarkable goal against Richmond the week before out at Beaconsfield from close to the boundary line, and is really showing something as the Swans' first round draft pick, the number 18, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Just remarkable stuff. 44 points behind Sydney were at the 18-minute mark of the third quarter. So not only have they beaten a team ranked 18 spots higher than them on the ladder, it's just unthinkable that they've come from 7 goals down. A very strong team, strongest team for the season that the Swans have put up. Jake Lloyd dropped from the AFL for the first time in over 10 years. He goes back and has 39 disposals, 8 marks, kicks a goal. Corey Warner played his first VFL game of the year. You've got Jesse DeToli there. You've got Riak Andrew, another draftee from last year, played his first game of the season. Max King, who is being touted as a potential top 5 draft pick this year. He made his debut out of the Swans Academy. But still, to come back against such a powerful team and win the game is, they've still got to work on that goal kicking. 12 goals, 20 to 12-14. But you could have knocked me down with a feather when I saw not only that they were coming back, but that they managed to win the game, the Swans. And and it tells me nothing about the Sharks. It changes nothing about the Sharks for me either.
No. They're too good a side. It's just it's a temporary blip, but I know both Brendan and I are huge Swans fans, so we hate doing our Homer moments for that. But I mean, it was everywhere. Like I remember waking up, getting ready for the Port Adelaide game, but half my timeline was just everybody talking about how the VFL side had come back, and it was just crazy. And then seeing the vision of the first guys getting ready, watching the reserves end of the game, and they're just as pumped for that. So it was a good day. It was a good day for the club. It was a great
It had
day
to
for
have
the club.
provided a massive lift for the AFL side,
Definitely,
running out,
definitely.
having seen that. But
Yeah. So
just
sorry for the
sensational.
Homer moments for those of you that are watching. We try not to. I really try not to, but
We
I
do
could
try.
not on that one.
And
So
apologies to Southport fans if you think we're a little bit happier than normal, but because don't worry, I love to see the Sharks doing well, and I love seeing them up near the top of the ladder.
yep,
Um,
100%.
it'd be happier times. Sorry to the AFL clubs, but it'd be happier times if the Swans were beating non-standalones. They're only 2 wins for the year, would you believe, are now against the 2 grand finalists in Werribee and Southport.
Mm-hmm.
How do you pick it?
It's the swings and roundabouts of footy, right?
Yeah, unbelievable stuff. And
Awesome.
yeah,
But
this
yeah, what a round of football.
we will. Collingwood and Sandringham is one that we have to touch on here as
Sure.
well. Sandy just stuck with the Magpies the whole way, but after a shocking start, 45 points up it was, Collingwood, in the second quarter, and might have even, and then Sandringham kicked 6 goals in the second term, charged back into the game. Collingwood got away again. They were 25 points up at 3/4 time, but Sandy wasn't going to be denied, and they kicked 5 unanswered goals in the last quarter. They took the lead. So at the 30-minute mark of the last quarter, Sandringham leads by 3 points. A goal to Charlie West for Collingwood puts them back in front. At the 32-minute mark, a goal to Misalifi Famalo, the standing captain from Sandringham, from 50 metres out on the boundary line, set shot. Sandringham are back in front. And then straight out of the middle, Collingwood goes again. West takes another mark about 40 metres out. Siren sounds. Goal after the siren. Charlie West finishes with 6. Collingwood gets the victory. Amazing stuff. 3 lead changes beyond the 30-minute mark of the last quarter. And, yeah, a real escape for Collingwood there. And just remarkable stuff watching the end of that. And the other ones, you're talking about these close games. Coburg trailed Port Melbourne by 27 points during the third quarter, but Port Melbourne 8 goals 19, and that tells it all. They've kicked 116, 151 for the season, and that's why they're now out of the finals race. That's the hard thing for them. They are good enough to be in the top 6. And they're languishing in 16th spot because they can't kick straight. The guy who could kick straight was Josh Dintinasante from Coburg, who kicked 6 goals, 1 at the other end to get his team over the line in a remarkable performance that keeps the Coburg Lions in line to make the finals for the first time in 16 years. So we certainly wish them well in that aspect. North Melbourne, with a late goal from Connor Downey, the vice captain, who had been struggling to get selected in a game this year. I think he probably only got a game because they rested the captain, Darcy McPherson. And then a rush behind in the 23rd minute ended up being the last score of the game. And they held on for that 1-point win for the last 7 or 8 minutes. So we just love close games of football. And North Melbourne look like they should be playing finals now after getting out of jail in that one.
Definitely, for sure. What an incredible round of footy. Well, sir, that is it. That is all the rounds this week. Thankfully, this time I got to you a little bit earlier and had some opening in my schedule, so we didn't have to go through 5 rounds of football. So we are through all of the rounds that have went through. So let's jump to the burning questions. We will start on the ladies' side of the ledger here. The Roos have taken top spot, I think, where most of us kind of expected them to be. Can they keep it through the last 5 rounds of the year, or is there another side lurking in the weeds, ready to pounce on this Roos side?
Absolutely, they can keep it. They are comfortably the best team in the competition. They were dominant last year in the second half of the season to win that premiership. They are in really good form at the moment. That 110-22 win over Geelong that you mentioned a couple of weeks ago. That was top versus bottom, but it just showed the class that team has got. Nike Dejuk, the full forward for North Melbourne, Werribee, she is the one in this competition. She's the Dom Brew. She's the one that you sit back and say, along with Dom Carboni, of course, the Collingwood captain, you sit back and wonder how, in heaven's name, is she not on an
the AFL
AFLW
list.
list?
Yep.
She kicked 7 goals in that game, which was the best performance of any player in the competition since Darcy Vesio kicked 9 in 2018, and then followed it up with 5 the following week. So anyone that can stop her gives them a chance to win the game, but she's almost unstoppable. She was stopped when playing for Collingwood in the 2023 grand final, and Collingwood lost. She was best on ground in the 2024 grand final, and the Kangaroos won. Enough said. Get her on an AFLW list. Scotty Gowans, if you are watching, get her on the Swans AFLW list. Get her in the goal square. Let her play.
She'd be the natural progression off Beck Privatelli. So
I'm
not gonna fight with you on that one. So
stick her there alongside Beck Privatelli, and you are automatically looking at a contender, I reckon.
I'm not going to argue with you on that one. I would thoroughly love it, but again, I'm looking forward to this AFLW season because I cannot wait to see for Swans fans to see Zippy Fish. Cannot wait. She is an absolute, like I said, the ones that have seen Mon Conti, everyone that I've told you, I said she is a Mon Conti clone, exactly like her. Great kick, slippery as all heck, can't tackle. Cannot wait for that. Now that I've waxed lyrical. Yeah, Zippy Fish.
Slippery as a fish. Yep.
Absolutely love it. So we're gonna go a tiny bit negative here on this, only because this is the one thing sometimes about these competitions that's sad. How discouraging is it that the bottom 3 sides in the VFLW have a combined 3 wins?
It is a little bit disappointing. We do prefer to look at the positives, that there are 9 teams in finals contention. But Carlton's 2 wins are against Geelong and Casey. Geelong's win is against Carlton. Casey now sitting on a 12-match losing streak, I believe it is, dating back to the last 3 games of last year. They haven't played the catch yet. That comes up in round 12, so it'll be interesting to see who gets over the line in that. I don't think Casey is a bad team. They've shown they pushed. I remember the game I saw a few weeks ago. They kicked 5 goals in a quarter against Essendon. So they are certainly capable of putting scores on the board. They're just not capable of putting it together for 4 quarters. It is disappointing to see 3 teams down at the bottom. I think it might be more cyclical than anything. I know it was a 16-match losing streak for Geelong, but they made the finals in 2023 and they were in the top 6 when that losing streak started in the middle of last year. And the last game that they won before that 16-match losing streak was a 4-goal defeat of North Melbourne, who went on to win the premiership. So they do not play their AFLW players hardly at all.
And I've noticed that they don't. They
sort of affects things a bit. But I would still love to see this competition expanded from 14 games out to a full season. We've got 12 teams. We could easily play the 18 games across 21 rounds as the VFL does. That would allow they would probably play more AFLW girls across the season. I want the AFLW to move into footy season, but that's a complete other conversation. And you'll see some more weird results when that happens. We're just entering the patch now where the AFLW teams are going to do that. They are going to drop in half a dozen players or even 10 players in a game like Casey did against Box Hill, and you're going to see some results that you'll see how the hell did that happen? But then you look at the selected team and you see that's why that happened. I would much prefer exactly. It'd be better if they're going to do that. They really should correlate with the opposition, so that the opposition does the same thing, and you've still got an evenly matched contest.
I agree.
Rather than a game.
Yeah, it's a lot like what happened with Sydney and GWS last year. Sydney and GWS were mostly playing AFLW players, so they were absolutely trouncing
Yeah,
teams.
and
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 then
the
they would
VFLW
go
side.
and yeah, and then they would go and trounce another team in the league, and it's like what? It doesn't make any sense, but it's
Yeah,
pure. It just shows you the pure class of the AFLW players compared to, and again, it's not that the VFLW players aren't there. It's
no,
progressing. It's a lot like all the other women's competitions. It is slowly progressing, getting better and better. The best of the best are going to play in the top competition. I'm
of course.
fascinated, really, really quickly. I know this is a question without notice, but I really want to discuss it. Do you think we see full time participation of Gold Coast, Brisbane, Sydney, and GWS in the next couple of years? Or is that still kind of on the back burner for a few years until the competition gets a few more years under its belt?
Well, the Swans and the Giants tried it last year. They only had the 5 games, and the reason why they haven't returned this year, and the VFL wanted them to return,
Hmm.
and I was hoping that they would return fully, but they both pulled out because they didn't get anything out of it. Because for the most part, their opposition didn't take those games seriously, and they actually not only did they leave all their AFLW players out, they rested some of their senior VFLW players as well, and that's why those results last year were
As
so
ugly as they were. Yep.
badly skewed. Exactly. The only team, and we touched on it last year. The only team that took their match seriously was Collingwood, and they went
Yep.
up to Sydney and got a win,
And beat them. Yep. It was the
and
only
that
the only
win
loss by
very nearly
GWS
got
was
them into the
Sydney.
top
Yep.
six.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
Yep.
and I would absolutely love it to happen for them to come in and play. If they came in and played the full 14 games or 18 games, if they expanded, then you would see the Swans and Giants would not be playing all AFLW players
Mhm.
in all their games.
Yep.
Because they only had 5 games, they played their full strength side
Yep.
because they wanted those girls to get that full strength team in. If they're playing 14 games or 18 games, they're going to be using the academy players. They're going to be
Hmm.
bringing the lesser ones through, the developing players, and they're probably going to have their fair share of losses and be severely challenged.
Hmm.
So for me, it's all or nothing, and the same with the Lions and the Suns.
Yep.
Full entry, fully into the competition, or not at all.
Yep. No, I'm 100% with you. Yeah, I think it would be fantastic not only for the academy girls, but who knows, maybe even some local New South Wales players would get that experience of playing a little bit higher level, higher experience coaching. So I think it would only help women's football. I'm not worried about the results. The results are meaningless in the long run, especially the first 2 or 3 seasons, just because you're wanting to establish a rhythm of the competition. So no, I'm 100% with you, but just wanted to, I know it's a question without notice, but just wanted to get your opinion on that. So let's jump over to the men's. And again, as I've kind of stated, I really love keeping track of these unattached clubs. I think they're fascinating to watch. As a follower of the unattached clubs, sir, it's a little worrying that three of the best are that three are now sitting just outside the final spots as the season is dwindling down.
They're looming though.
Yep.
Two of them are definitely looming, and that is Coburg and Frankston,
Yep.
who are who actually play each other this week in a game that I'll be fortunate enough to be at and bringing to you all on Sunday afternoon, Eastern Standard Time here in Australia. That's a game to watch. That isn't. It's going to be an absolute cracker. Frankston made the finals for the first time last year since 2007. Coburg looking for their first finals appearance since 2008. Um, I've got Frankston has a very, very um, not friendly, but winnable fixture. They could very easily win every game they've got left for the rest of the year. So I still expect them to not just make the finals, but make the top 6. And they're 2 games and percentage outside the top 4. That may prove to be a bridge too far,
Hmm.
but I certainly can see them getting up into the top 6 if they get on a run. This one is one of the 50-50s
Hmm.
because Coburg is playing so well. The Lions, the fixture is just a little bit tougher than Frankston's, but I can see them winning enough to get in, and there are 2 or 3 vulnerable teams in the bottom of the top 10 there, with harder fixtures coming home. So it's certainly still alive. Werribee, the reigning premiers, now sitting in 13th spot on 5 and 7.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the game in hand. They've probably got maybe one more loss. They've probably got to win 5 out of the last 6 if they want to make the finals. And I as I said earlier, I think they've found their tipping point. They're probably going to miss out this year. No one else below that can make it. Port Melbourne have kicked themselves out of the competition. They're going to be I used the term earlier today, banana peel,
Mm-hmm.
for teams in the top 10, because their best is good enough to beat anyone. And we saw that against GWS. And we saw that against North Melbourne when they were absolutely electric, and they looked like world beaters in those games when they kick straight. But then they had 16-14 and I think it was 14-12 against the Kangaroos. Poor old Northern Bullants are having a battle down there at the bottom of the ladder. They're going to, as we mentioned last month, they're going to rename themselves back to Preston next year. That'll provide a little bit of a lift, a massive lift, I think.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to see much from them this year, unfortunately, but hopefully that reset over the off-season, we'll see them getting back up the ladder. As far as the standalones go, not concerned at all about Southport losing last week.
Mm-hmm.
They're still comfortably placed in second on the ladder. They're still a genuine premiership contender. Williamstown, 6 wins in a row now. They're sitting 7th on the ladder. They're only a game outside the top 4. They are ready to pounce. And if they can keep that run going with a couple of players, they've got 3 or 4 due to come back from injury in the next couple of weeks. They're a genuine contender right now.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. We'll definitely have to keep track of that. It'll be fun, but I saw 3 in a row sitting there, and I'm like, wow, I'm like, they're so close. But yeah, and I agree with you. I worry Werribee that they're 6 points back. They don't have they've already played that extra game. A couple of teams are around him. It's going to take quite the effort to be able to do it, and I'm just not sure they have the petrol tickets to be able to get there. But you
If
never
anyone
know.
can,
Some more. Oh yeah, exactly. Dom Brew magic. You just never know on that one. So, and then we'll do like we did with the women's. Box Hill sits atop of the VFL ladder currently, but they're being nipped at their heels by several teams. Can this Hawks side hold on through these last 7 rounds, or is there a team that you see topping the ladder over the Hawks?
I will quickly say I didn't mention the teams who I was watching to chase North Melbourne Werribee down in the women's, and that is the Box Hill Hawks. Williamstown going well, and Collingwood for me are
Yep.
the ones to really watch there. But over in the men's competition, yeah, this is just wide open,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely wide open. I still see the Brisbane Lions, who are sitting in 5th spot on the ladder, as the best team.
Yep.
They,
And
they
they're
were
only
my pick
one
at the
game
start.
back. They're only 4 points back.
They were my pick at the start of the year. I've seen they've lost a couple of games that they shouldn't have lost,
Mm-hmm.
but I certainly see them as the team to beat at their best, especially with that home ground advantage up there in Queensland. All those teams above them are very much capable of winning the premiership. Box Hill and Southport were the other 2 that I had in the top 3. I had Footscray and Williamstown at 4th and 5th. So they were my top 5 at the start of the year that I thought were the teams that could win the premiership.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all sitting there in the top 7. They're all looming large. GWS and North Melbourne are the other 2 that are there. Depth is the big thing for these 2 sides. North Melbourne's best, we've seen, and GWS's best are good enough to go with anyone. But when they can only be just a fraction off. GWS was 99 points behind the Brisbane Lions 2 weeks ago before kicking the last 4 goals to pull the margin back a little bit. I think their spot in the top 4 is probably the vulnerable one.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're not going to miss the finals. They're going too well. They're not going to miss the finals, but I can see them sort of falling back to around about that 5, 6, 7
Yep.
sort of mark as the contenders make their move. And North Melbourne, they could go either way. Again,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're going to miss the finals. They're too good a team. They've got the development of their young list that is now showing green shoots at AFL level is
Mm-hmm.
pushing more experienced players back to VFL level, and so they are flying at the moment. They'll make the finals as well. So they're the 7 that are right there. I
Yep.
reckon that are. Whether the Giants and North can keep going, I think I've got them just on that next rung.
Mm-hmm.
Collingwood and Richmond, they just keep surprising you. Richmond in particular, I've been waiting for them to drop off for 3 years.
Yep.
It just hasn't happened. And the Casey Demons have come from bottom 3. I had Richmond and Casey both in my bottom 4. So while I'm sitting here and saying, yeah, my top 5 picks are right up there,
There's a few
there's a couple that
clangers there.
there's a couple of clangers as well, and
Yeah.
those two. And Richmond took great delight out of pulling the side before the round 1 game against Coburg, which I got to call and said we won't be finishing 18th. And I said, well, for your sake, I really hope you can prove me wrong.
Yeah.
And they have,
Please make me
and
eat
they
crow.
have,
I
and
don't
good on them.
mind.
Yeah, I am very, very happy to be proven wrong.
Yep.
Because when you're trying to box 21 teams into
Yep.
a ladder, that is almost impossible. And I think I said right from the start that I could barely split anyone between 6 and 19.
Yep.
And 18 and 19 was Richmond and Casey,
Mm-hmm.
and they're sitting 9 and 10.
Yep.
Coburg, Frankston. Yeah, so for me, it's 12 teams that can make it. It's still 5 teams that can win it, but there's a couple of others looming. The Collingwood, Richmond, and Casey. They are proving me wrong so far. I had Collingwood as being a riser to, I think, 11th. I think I had them. They're the 3 that Coburg and Frankston should be eyeing off.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's down to a race in 12.
No, it'll be fascinating. I'm very interested. The biggest thing for me is I look at GWS has that a disadvantage of they've already played that 12th game where everybody around them in that top 6 all still have a game in hand. So this thing could do
That'll square
some
off
snakes and
completely.
ladders big time over these next few weeks for sure as everybody kind of finishes off their buys as we get through the round, sir. Well, that is it for burning questions. Let's get to it, sir. We will get through the tips really quickly. We have round 10 for the women and round, I believe it's 14 for the men still to go through. We'll go through this as quickly as we can because I know you have to get ready for work, sir. So we'll start off DSV Stadium in Victoria as the Williamstown Seagulls host the top of the ladder, North Melbourne Werribee Kangaroos. I don't think I'm jumping too high off the ladder here. Roos win this one, but I'm hoping the Seagulls give them a mighty test. This should be a cracking game of football.
If anyone can beat North Melbourne Werribee heading down to the finals, it's Williamstown at home. I don't think they've got the forward line power to be able to kick a winning score. They could certainly restrict North Melbourne to a low score, but whether they can kick a winning score themselves is the question. If they can, then more power to them, and they will announce themselves as a premiership contender. But it's the Kangaroos for me.
Yep, definitely for sure. Let's jump to it. Next one down at Genus Steel Oval Stadium as the Darebin Falcons host the Sandy Dragons in this one. As much as I would love to tip my Darebin Falcons in this one, I think I'm going to go Sandy on this one. I'll tip the Zebras.
Got to pick Sandringham based on the form that they've shown in the past couple of weeks, but this is very, very much a winnable game for Darebin at home. They are a good team. They are a better team at home, and it would not surprise me in the slightest to see them get up because the Zebras have the ability to be world beaters. But as you saw during that block that we looked at, they lost to Collingwood 61-8.
Mm-hmm.
So that is very possible as well. So Sandy to win, but nothing in it.
Yep, definitely for sure. So, at Windy, we'll jump to Windy Hill in Melbourne as the Essendon Bombers host the bottom of the ladder Casey Demons. As much as I would love for the D's to get the win here, I think the Bombers just too good, especially at Windy Hill.
You've got to, yeah, you've got to tip Essendon in this one. The way they conceded the first 5 goals of the game to Casey earlier on in the season and ran them down. Um, it all depends on the AFL selections. If they bring out their 9 AFLW players again this week, Casey, they'll beat Essendon because they're not as good as Box Hill. But if they don't, then all things being equal, Essendon wins.
Yep, definitely for sure. Let's go to Box Hill City Oval as the Hawks host the Pies. An intriguing one here. Who do you like? Pies, Hawks?
I do like the Hawks, especially at home, but again, Collingwood just keeps proving us wrong, and this is 2 premiership contenders. One of them will emerge as the number 2 seed behind the Tigeroos, as I think we probably should be calling them, the North Melbourne Werribee team. Um, I think Box Hill wins at home, but again, this is a real 50-50 call.
Yeah, same thing. Box Hill at home. I'll tip the Hawks, but will not shock me if the Pies find a way to knock them off. Interesting one. Carlton v Port Melbourne and Icon Park on this one. I'll tip the Borough in this one. As much as I'd love for Carlton to get a win to kind of help out the bottom of the ladder, I think Port Melbourne just too good.
Borough needs to win to keep themselves in the finals race. So I don't think they have too many problems with the Blues here.
Definitely. And last but not least, Geelong take on the Western Bulldogs at Deakin University down in Geelong. Got the doggies in this one. Would love for the Cats to get a win here. Just think the doggies too strong.
Yeah, very disappointing last week in their 100th game. The Western Bulldogs, they'll be fired up to make amends for that, and I'll be backing them to beat Geelong.
Yep, definitely. Let's jump over to the men's competition, one that I'm intrigued by, especially with the hopefully renewed form of the Swans, as the Sydney Swans host the Footscray Bulldogs at Tramway Oval up in Sydney. Who do you like in this one?
Now a danger game for the Bulldogs based on what the Swans did last week, but the Bulldogs they're a top 4 team, and
Mhm.
as are Southport, of course. Um, it you can't trust Sydney just yet. They need to go and do it again before you can pick them with any confidence. So it's Footscray for me in this one.
Yeah, I'm not seeing many AFL changes, so I think this is going to be a pretty strong Sydney side. I agree with you. I think the Duggies win this, but I think Sydney they make it interesting. I think Sydney makes it interesting if Jake Lloyd and some of the talent that were down, Ollie Florent and them are still down in the VFL, which I have a hard time seeing Dean Cox making too many changes in the AFL side, but you never know. Well, guess we'll see come selection for the VFL.
I think
Interesting
there'd
one
be
up.
one. I think there'd be one at most, unless there's injuries that we're
Yep.
that we're not aware of. Lloyd might force his way back in after being so dominant, but
Hmm.
I don't think any of the others are forcing their way back just yet.
Yeah, no, 100% with you. Up to People First Stadium up in Queensland as the Suns host the D's in this one. Who do you like in this one?
Flip of the coin.
Yep.
In Melbourne, I'm picking Casey.
Yep.
The Gold Coast actually showed a little bit of a return to form against GWS last week. They led midway through the last quarter before being overrun. I wrestled with this one with Paul Persick on Monday, and it fell Casey's way. I want to wait to see the selections. I reserve judgment, but I'll stick with Casey just for now in a really tight contest.
I'm the same way. I'm the same way. Gold Coast has kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit. I think Casey just a little bit more form, but up at People's First Stadium, you never know. So tipping Casey, but will not shock me if Gold Coast pull off the win on that one. A fun one at Arden Street. North Melbourne v Box Hill, 6v1, two finals teams right now. I'm gonna tip the Hawks in this one. A little bit more confident in the Hawks, but who knows? North Melbourne at home, Arden Street. Who knows? You never know what'll happen.
Exactly, one of the 2 matches of the round. This one, again, I fell on the Hawks side of the coin when I was wrestling with it. but once again, North Melbourne a really live chance being on their home deck. But the Hawks by a couple of goals.
Yep, same thing for me on that one. Up to Frank Hauser Reserve up in Southport in Queensland as the Sharks host the Magpies. A ripping one this could turn out to be. Who do you like, Sharks or Pies?
I think Sharks bounce back. I think they will be really angry at what they gave away last week, a chance to go to the top of the ladder at the 2/3 mark of the season. And I think they might take it out on Collingwood, although the Magpies won't be any sort of a pushover. I'm backing the Sharks to win.
I was going to say the same thing. They're going to get the Pies may run into an angry Sharks squad. Collingwood, I think they'll push through it through most of it. But I think the fourth quarter, the Sharks' anger and their skill, I think will just be a little bit too much Sharks for me on that one. The Northern Bull Ants host the Richmond Tigers at Gina Steel Oval in Preston. Tigers for me. As much as I would love the Bullies to get a win here, I just think the Tigers just have a little too much.
Yeah, a little too much, probably a lot too much.
I was
Unfortunately
trying to be
for
nice here. Come
yeah,
on.
yeah. I'm trying to be nice as well. But they try really hard. I went and watched them play against Carlton last week, the Bull Ants, and they threw absolutely everything at the Blues. They just lack that polish, that level of class, and they miss their targets by maybe half a meter, and that's all it takes at this level. So they're not far off, but the scoreboard says that they probably are. They've just got to tidy a few things up, and that will come with the development and trying to keep their list together. But Richmond will be too good. They won't be dropping this one with final spots on the line.
Yep, definitely for sure. Let's jump to DSV Stadium as the Seagulls host the Sandy Zebras in this one. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, it's Williamstown comfortably for me here. I think the Zebras, they pushed Collingwood all the way last week. They've shown that they're capable from time to time, but Williamstown on a 6-match winning streak at home, they don't lose this.
Yep, nope, I'm with you on this one. I got the Seagulls over the Zebras on this one. Home field advantage is definitely up for them. The Gulls play DSV very, very well. So ETU Stadium in Melbourne as Port Melbourne hosts the Carlton Blues in this one. Another coin toss game. Who do you fancy in this one?
I'm leaning towards Port Melbourne at home. I've seen them 3 times in the last month, and as disappointing as they were last week with their kicking for goal against Coburg, they were electric against North Melbourne and GWS. And if they bring that in this game, they will be far too good for Carlton. If they don't, or if they can't kick straight, then Carlton will beat them. It's as simple as that. But this
Oh,
one, sorry, it's on Port Melbourne's boot, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yep, nope. I'm 100% with you on that one. And last but not least, rounding up a great one, fighting for the playoff for those final spots at Barry Plant Park in Coburg as the Lions host the Frankston Dolphins. Who do you like on this one?
Absolute rip snorter, isn't it? I think Frankston is the better team at the moment. Not a lot in it. Definitely not a lot in it. Coburg, I think, have only lost to Frankston once on this ground in about the last 15 years, but that was last season. So you can potentially throw that one out the window. The coin toss came down Coburg at home. It would have been Frankston at Frankston, but I'm leaning slightly towards Coburg at home. But it's possibly because Coburg, having played that extra game, just needs to win just that fraction more.
Yep, I'm with you on this one. Gonna tip the Lions in this one. This one's gonna be a good one. I definitely may sit down and watch this one no matter what. Should be a cracking game of football. Well, we've done it. We've gotten through all of the tips. Everything has gone pretty well here, Brendan. It is fantastic to sit down and talk footy again. Thankfully, this time we're not going through 5 or 6 rounds of football to go through. So, Brendan, as per usual, fantastic work by you. It is always great to sit down and talk VFL and VFLW football.
It's one of my favourite hours of the month, Donny. Great stuff, mate. We'll look forward to doing it again, hopefully sooner.
Definitely, for sure. We will definitely keep track of it. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for another episode of Donna's Disposals, and we'll be back with more footy coverage very, very soon.